Hey guys, so you may be wondering why the car no longer has a front on it, and why there's a steering box down there on the floor. Let's get into that. So in one of my previous videos, not the last one with the billet parts, the valve covers and everything, the one prior to that, I was under the car messing around with the design for the oil pan. In the comments, one of you guys, Lewis, pointed out that the sway bar might not fit. Just quickly, Lewis follows me on Instagram as well. He lives in the UK. He's building a beautiful XA wagon. I think it's jewel green. I could be wrong there. Sorry if it is wrong, Lewis. But he's doing an absolute mint job. Check him out on Instagram. Give him some support. But he commented that the sway bar might not fit. So I bolted the sway bar in and started making some changes to my oil pan, and I could still put an 8 litre oil pan in there around the sway bar. But that got me thinking, I can work around the sway bar, that's not a problem, but that moved on to what else could potentially be in my way, which then moved on to how nice would it be if none of that was in my way, including that factory steering box. So I've also mentioned earlier how much this steering box gets in the way in the car, how much room it takes up. This corner of the box lines up very nicely with the exhaust port on the 4-cylinder, so the headers get very close to this. With this out of the way, there's a bit more room to the tower, but this is just a headache. On a side note, while I was pulling this out, box was still in the car. I was moving the arms back and forth while I was unscrewing these joiners, and you could hear crunching in the box, some grinding noises. It's sloppy again. I've adjusted it many times over the years, and you can't really hear it while it's in the car while you're turning. But while it was up on the stands and I was moving stuff around, you could clearly hear a lot of not very nice noises coming from inside that. So I'll fix that. And these joiners here, if anyone's interested, they're just from RRS. So I've been thinking an awful lot about how I could potentially make this work a lot easier for me while gaining a power steering rack. I'm getting old. It's a big car. More room in the engine bay, and potentially sorting out this external oil pump situation, which is going to be a reasonably expensive exercise. And if I could avoid it and spend the money elsewhere on other upgrades, then I think that's the way to go. And all trains of thought have always led back to the easiest way is to go independent front suspension, IFS. Put a kit through it. Now, in the last video, I mentioned how the bonnet hinges was one thing I always wanted to do to the car. There's actually two things I've always wanted to do to the car, and the other one, it's actually the main one I've always wanted to do to this thing, is put an independent front end in it. Some of you will be familiar with Gary's green XB Coupe from New South Wales with a supercharged Cleveland. It's been in Street Forwards magazine and I believe the Street Machine Ford magazine that came out a few years ago. He's got a bell crank rear suspension in there and an independent front suspension, and I knew that car before it came out in that magazine, and I've always loved it. So yeah, I've always been a big fan of that car, and I've always been very envious of the amount of room he's got in his engine bay. And I've seen other guys do it to Falcons as well, and I've always thought if I could do that I would, but I've just put it in the too hard basket until now. There are a bunch of options available for front ends for these cars. There's Rod Shop, Rod Tech, they all do, McDonald Brothers, they all do a similar front end for these fairly basic, fairly standard IFS kit. The one I was looking at was United Speed Shop, their Magnum front end. That is a very nice piece of gear, and it's got a lot of options, a lot of detail built in, and they're a higher price bracket, but you can see why when you look at it. The thing is, it's a beautiful bit of gear, it's art. And there is one more option, and it's in the same bracket as the United Speed Shop front end. SOT that runs Speed Garage and MVE. He's the engineer I mentioned many videos ago who's actually looking after getting this thing back on the road. One of his side things is a custom suspension shop. Basically, they design and manufacture custom front ends. I've decided to go with SOT or Speed Garage with this one. One of the main reasons for me was they're local. They're literally 10 minutes down the road from me. The huge benefit for me with these guys being local, being so close, is if I was to get something from interstate and it wasn't quite right because of my car, not their product, but because we all know what 1970s Falcons are like for matching each other, panel gap wise, measurements, it changes during the week when they were manufactured and how different they are to the car that was made the day before. Manufacturing tolerances is the phrase I'm looking for. They don't exist. So if I got something from New South Wales shipped over and it needed changing for my car, it's going to be a hassle. Now, with these guys just down the road, they can come and check things out. And that's basically what we did. So as per the start of the video, Thursday night I pulled all the front of the car apart, all the guards, panels, grill, that sort of thing. Friday morning I cut the cross member out and dropped the engine in place on my tough mounts that I set up. Put the starter motor on, a few other bits and pieces. And then Friday afternoon, Ronnie, who works with SOT, who you'll see in a minute, he brought around his computer and a 3D scanner. So what he's essentially done is taken a 3D scan or image of the engine bay with everything where it's going to be in the car, and he's taken the suspension, all that, where everything is at the moment, the brakes, pretty much everything from the firewall forward is he's got in great detail now in his computer. So he's taken that back to the shop and he's going to get on with designing a front end, a cross member, the steering rack mounts, all that sort of thing, the steering geometry, all of that to suit this car on these rails. So I can cut these towers out. I can cut these towers out, clean the rails up, everything. I'm not going to do it just yet. But then when this is all bare, that cross member will be made to fit these rails, everything's spot on. And that way there's no issue with will it fit, what do I need to modify or anything like that. It'll be a to suit this car, so it should be spot on. So I just I took a little bit of footage of that process of Ronnie under the car with his scanning gun and what you see on the screen. You be able to kind of make it out on the computer screen on the monitor what you're looking at, like the oil pan and everything. This has got the factory Godzilla oil pan at the moment, so that shows up quite clearly. You can see the caster rods and that sort of thing. I'll point a few things out, but if you know Falcons, you know what you're looking at. But yeah, let's just check that out. So that will be a bit of a time-consuming process with all the design work. It's fairly involved. I'm not sure on the time frame, but I'm not sure when I'm going to start cutting this up in relation to how far along the front end is in manufacturing stage. Put it that way. Something I do have to consider: the yellow tape here. That's the location of the factory chassis number. Now, as you can imagine, these towers are going. I want them gone. So this will be a flat sheet all the way back, which means something has to happen with this chassis number. That could be potentially another timely process, because I have to contact the transport department, which I will do tomorrow, and try and arrange for one of their inspectors to come out, have a look at the car, inspect that number, make sure it's legit, and then they will issue me a surrogate number, which I have to put somewhere else on the car. But I think there's a bit of a backlog for inspections at the moment with everything going on in the world, how busy they are. So again, it happens when it happens. I'll get onto it, but I just don't know. So we'll see. But it's one of the things you have to take into consideration when you're chopping up ruining classics. So moving away from front end shenanigans, in a recent video I mentioned that I'd been speaking with Travis from Hammond Engineering in Victoria, and he had made me a plastic 3D prototype spacer for the throttle body to the blower. And in that video I fitted it up, put the throttle body on, and we set the bonnet on, and the vent in the bonnet was touching. And I spoke about how the good thing with the 3D plastic prototypes is it's not an expensive billet part. We can make our changes, and Trav can make the changes, and we can try again. And that's what he's done. So we'll have a look at this. So this was the original design, and the new one. So it is considerably different in overall design and shape, as well as size. You can see how it's pulled the throttle body back that far. It's a nicer looking design. There's nothing wrong with that one, but this one, it all sort of blends in nicely. Is compact, and with the assistance of my housemate Gus, we dropped the bonnet on, and we'll have a look at the result. So it looks close, but there's actually a lot of room under there. And Trav, you're a legend. Thank you so much for that. It's just what I was after. So now I've got back in touch with Trav, and said, "Yep, that's cool. Let's do this." And he's gone on to the manufacturing stage in billet. I won't mention what he asked that he could engrave in the top of it, because it's not PG, but yeah, he's moving on with that, so that'll come back anodized with something on top of it, but that's that problem solved. The other kind of problem is, while all this new cross member, the new steering rack and everything fixes the problem of oil pump location, steering location, clearances, that sort of thing. If we go all the way down here, oh, I'm too old for this. That's the factory Godzilla oil pan. This wheel I've got tied up kind of at the right height that I'm after, and you can see the factory sump is massive. So one fix for that is, well, there's a couple of companies in the States that make oil pans for these. One's Indie Power Products, which is a beautiful piece. It's a billet pan, and it has a billet front cover for the engine with an oil pump inside it instead of the factory one. So you can do all sorts of things with that. The price tag is a lot. So it's a lot. The other option is the 417 Motorsports fabricated oil pan. That comes with it's a low pan and comes with a billet plate, which replaces the plate on the back of the rear of the oil pump, factory oil pump. Instead of the pickup being underneath the pump and hanging really low, it puts the oil pickup on the back of the pump, and you put a plug in the bottom of the pump, and that raises it by a couple of inches. So then the oil pan can be made several inches shorter than the factory oil pan. If you can see that line going across there, that's representing the height of the new pan. I'll wrap this video up here, guys. It's pretty much, this thing is going IFS. I'm cutting everything out and going a new front end. Thanks again to Trav for the spacer there, the adapter. Check his stuff out on Instagram. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out what I'm doing. I hope it's of some interest. But, yeah, I do appreciate it. Thanks for commenting, sharing, checking it out, and please subscribe if you haven't already. And hopefully I will see you again real soon. Cheers.